My friends are saying, we can't see anything on YouTube.
Now we're live, Christopher, so you can say hi to your friends. We're actually ready. So thank you so much, Christopher Mlalazi, for this interview and this time with us. So let's talk about...
Are we on?
Yes, we're on.
Okay.
Okay. I want to talk to you about African literature. And for us in Mexico, we're not so close to African literature. We have in Spanish translated Chimamanda Ngozi, and there are some other authors that we have been able to get translated in Spanish. And for us, we're really glad to be able to know you and that your book is translated to Spanish. So let us start with your path about being a writer and how you got published and all of that, please.
Yes, I think I'm mostly a self-taught writer, even though I've done some workshops here and there. And I started writing at high school.
Okay.
Right. And up to now, I think it's around maybe like 25 years of writing, and I'm 50. So that means that's, yeah.
Half your life, about more than half. And what kind of literature did you start reading, or what got you hooked as a reader?
Right. I did not actually study literature. I studied a bit of literature at high school, but before then, as a child, I've always been a reader. I have always been reading anything that I can find, that I can put my hands on. So I cannot specify that I like to read this kind of literature. You know, I'm that kind of person who can even read a Bible. I read a Bible without going to church. I don't go to church, but I found time to try to read through the Bible because I found the stories interesting there. So anything interesting for me, I read. And
of course, they really, to be a writer, I think you have to be a good reader. And in the Bible, there are really good stories. So, I mean, it's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and how can you, just for us to understand, when you started writing, how did you set your mind on getting published, or just starting different genres and then everything start flowing from there, or how did tell us the next part?
Yeah. That's a very interesting question that sometimes I think about. You know, when I started writing, I did not think of like being published by a publisher. You know, I was just writing for my friends at high school, like write something, maybe like a composition, and give it to my friends and say, hey, how do you like it? Do you like it or not? You know, and then gradually, as I wrote more and more, then one day I just decided maybe I can get published.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working towards getting published, and eventually I first published in the newspaper magazine, then in a short story anthology, all this in Zimbabwe. Mm-hmm. And then from the anthology to a book, and to more books.
Okay. And did you, well, I didn't say the part where did you, well, where are you from the people that don't know where you're from?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I forgot to tell you.
Right, I'm from Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe is in Southern Africa. Most people here in Mexico, if you say Zimbabwe, they will go, huh? Where is that? But then...
Because it's a big continent, obviously.
But as a reference...
And a bit far.
Yeah, as a reference, I always say the other side of the world, they know South Africa. So I will just say next to South Africa. Most people know South Africa is a reference point, and then okay, on the northern border, there's a country called Zimbabwe,
Mhm.
formerly called Rhodesia, which was colonized by the British, and so English is our official language of communication, even though we have our own very beautiful indigenous languages.
Mhm. And let me, let's just start talking about your novel, which is called Fleeing with My Mother.
Running with mother.
Running with Mother. Yes, I made the the
Yeah,
translation from
all right.
Spanish.
You are the translator.
Sometimes. Okay, we were just talking before we started this interview that the story is set in Zimbabwe, and it comes from personal experience, but I don't want to give it away. I would like to ask you to tell us about what the novel is about, so I don't give some important things away, because I usually do that. So I prefer
All right.
you to say it.
Okay. The novel is set in Zimbabwe in the period from 1980 up to 1987, although I capture just a slice of that period. And
Mhm.
then the events behind that period was just after independence in Zimbabwe. Right, there was a genocide which was committed by government troops
Mhm.
under the then President Mugabe, who is now late. He
Mhm.
was taken out in a coup late, and that period caused a lot of trauma to the people on the southern part of Zimbabwe. Right,
Yeah.
I saw part of that. Although I was living in the city, most of it occurred in the rural areas, and I saw part of it from the city.
Mhm.
And so I was young then.
Yeah.
That is why also I think I was around 12.
Mhm.
That is why also I used the voice of a child,
Of Rudo.
right, of a child in the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is part fiction and
Mhm.
part reality, fact. What we call is a genre that we call faction, fact and fiction. The story is fiction, but
Mhm.
the background of the story is a fact.
Yeah. And I want to ask you exactly about your protagonist, Rudo, or one of your protagonists, this 14-year-old girl that we see the outrage, the terrible events that happen through her eyes. And I sometimes, when people probably start caring the most, is when we're able to see the children's point of view of some of this tragedy. Either way, it's impossible to explain. How can we as brothers and sisters and um, go through this and just be spectators most of the time? No, so how did you start developing Rudo as one of the main?
Um, I wrote that book in 2010,
Mm,
although it was published in 2012, I think. It's a
mhm,
long time ago. Sometimes, as writers, we don't remember what the initial inspiration for the point of view. But I
mhm,
think for myself, I found that it was easier for me as the writer, right, to be the one who is going through the story with you.
mhm,
It's far much easier because um, my view is almost like in a tunnel. I don't have to describe other things from another point of view. I'm just telling it as it is, and also for the reader, I think it's a hook for the writer. It can be gripping because you become the character of the story as you are reading. You
mm,
become that person. The emotions, what they see, what they feel, the fear, the hope, everything. You are the character, and I think it's a creative writing technique that works for me. As even right now, I'm writing another story and using the same technique. You are the one who is going through the story. Like if you're playing a video game,
mm.
you You are the one who is turn around, things like that. That is primarily why I use that point of view.
And how did well now Benny, as we were also preparing through this interview, we were talking about how since last week, finally, the in a global way or sort of a global way through social media, we will we have been able to talk about how every life matters. You know, with the recently death of an African American. And I would like to talk about certain things like the exile and fleeing and that part. How how can now, for example, you're living in Mexico City since 2016. Exile marks your life. How everybody is fighting for a place in its own world in this construction of destruction, if you will, what we're living. How how can you be able to live with this as exile as a part of your life?
Um, Sometimes exile can be just a term, because right now I just see myself as somebody just who's just living in another place. This could be Zimbabwe too. No, I can just say, okay, I'm in Zimbabwe because underneath my feet there's soil, the sun overhead, birds singing outside, people around me. All right, but then also again there is that disconnectedness from you know, from your mother country.
Mhm.
All right, but then we are all strangers all over the world. You know, we are all strangers, and it's fine for me here. I get to be free. I get to be who I am. I write what I like. I can,
Mhm.
it's inspiring for me. So exile is just a term, but I'm just in another country.
But there's a lot of freedom. I mean, from the novel, for example, I get that never lose hope and your dignity, and but it's a really hard the people who survive it. No, it's a hard set of mind to decide to be free. No, because people can be on another country in exile and still living in the past of what happened and still living in the moments of when everything got taken away from you. No, so
Right. Okay. So what exactly is your question? Maybe I don't understand
yeah,
it.
it's just a comment. It's just a comment telling about
Okay.
how brave of everyone who goes through with this has to get a special set of mind uh, as a survivor. No,
Right.
it's not easy.
Right.
It's a decision that it takes a lot for you to just to, as you say, to be free wherever you are. But it's something really it's something really difficult. No?
Yeah. Yeah. We have that instinct where, as human beings, we always want to be free. We want to be liberated. And if you are living and growing in an environment which does not offer you that, obviously you become like you rebel. Sometimes you can say, okay, it's either I leave or I change things.
Mhm.
Right. So I decided to leave.
Exactly.
Right. Or maybe in some way also change things by using that book as a tool for change. Right. Because that
Mhm.
book is being read by people, it is getting people thinking. It is being studied in universities in Zimbabwe. It has been studied in the USA. I don't know, maybe one day it will be studied also in Mexico. But the whole point is just to get people thinking about circumstances, especially hostile circumstances, which they sometimes find themselves living under, and how they can react to that. But in the book, I just present the hostile environment, but I do not use it as a propaganda to say, okay, do this, all right, this is this, do that. No,
Mhm.
it's just to set you thinking.
Yeah, the human part is the most important. You're not making like a political statement or anything else. It's just like the the human lives, no, the treasures, the horrible circumstances, as you saying, and the result of that, how it
Right.
affects everybody.
And also another very good point is that through the book, I'm just telling a story, no matter you like it or not. I'm
Mhm.
still telling a story about events that happened, and while some people might not be comfortable, about this story, things like that, but I don't care. I'm just I'm telling a story about something that happened. I'm not lying, even although it's fiction.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you're filling the gaps with what you think will
Yeah,
happen to the story of many people. No.
capturing a universal story, capturing history,
Yes.
for
Exactly.
posterity, for people in the future to use as a reference to say, oh, okay, during the time of Julius Caesar, this happened and that happened. We also have got to have that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I will also like to talk about the humor. How can there's some parts of humor in the novel, and it's in a way, I don't know if you have it in your own life, how humor can save us in a way.
Well, I like telling jokes. I like laughing. I like having a good time. And well, sometimes people might think that if you write a story that is almost like sad, almost like violent, that you don't have the ability to laugh, right? So where I grew up in the township, laughing is an everyday thing. We are always laughing, even although sometimes circumstances can be difficult socially, economically, but we always find time, to have a good time, to laugh, crack jokes. So I try to also to infuse that in the story, that even although it's a serious story, but they also should be, like a lighter side where
Mhm.
the reader, does not read throughout crying. You have to
Exactly. You need that.
cry and laugh, love, feel hate. Right.
Yeah. And talking about Black Lives Matter, how's it been your experience? For example, in our country, there's a lot of racism. I think there's racism in every parts of the world. Where are humans, there are issues.
Yes.
But how having you been able to move across that barrier that we have?
Yeah. I've been following that in the news. Unfortunately, as you said, yeah, racism is there in the diaspora. We call uh, we are coming from Africa that this is the diaspora where we have people of different color to ours. Racism will always be there. I've met it somewhere. I've seen it somewhere in some places, and unfortunately, it's a tough question, and I cannot give an answer to that. I don't think there's going to be an end to that. It will always be there. But the what we should try is to maybe when we meet it and try to, I don't know, maybe make it less, or because it will never disappear.
And to talk about it, no, I mean, probably it will take hundreds of years to not to have racial systematic racism, the ones that we have it in our country. The government sets since many thousands of, I'm not thousands, 100 years ago, how the Spanish had certain revenue and certain kinds of income through slaves that were the native people from our country. And then the status of who has the power and who can't have the power is still the same, no, and it's really horrible. So probably if by talking about it, by not saying this is not okay, this is the first time, probably thanks to social media, that we're having this conversation in sometimes very violent way, and whatever, it's at least we can set it in the table, like something that's not, we are used to having it, but it's we're saying enough is enough. And probably some ways the new generations will be able to see what we need to do, no?
Okay. Are you talking in the context of Mexico?
Mexico, and it applies to everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially in places where we have indigenous people
Mhm.
and ex-colonizers. You
Exactly.
know, there will always be that power play, you know, because if you look around in most countries which have been colonized and they're indigenous people, the indigenous people are always like at the, you know, at the
Yeah.
bottom of the, almost at the bottom of the ladder. And yeah, when I came to Mexico, I didn't know much about Mexico, you know, and
Mhm.
I then when I arrived here and started discovering that, you know, like people will be saying, "Oh, speak Spanish," and then in my own way, because it's difficult for me to learn Spanish, I would say, "Why should I learn a colonial language? I would rather learn Nahuatl." Nahuatl.
Exactly. Yeah, because I mean, we have, yes. I mean, when the Africans were taking to North America as slaves, they were also brought to Mexico. So when for us, it, I mean, we think you probably are Mexican also. I mean, because we
Yes,
have
yes.
that.
Especially if I walk around the streets wearing my Mexican football team T-shirt, people will think that I'm Mexican, and then discover that, oh, he doesn't even speak Spanish, he speaks
Exactly.
English, and someone will say, "Are you from the USA?" And then, no, I'm
Yeah.
not from the USA. I'm
No,
from
Zimbabwe, man.
African Zimbabwe. Yeah, all right. Yeah, just to come back to your point is that although now we are not talking about the book, the book, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
we
but reading it right now, it's. I mean, it gets
a platform. Yeah. Mhm. Unfortunately, also, I have never had the opportunity to meet the African Mexican community here.
Mm,
I've never, and then also since I don't read Spanish, also so it's difficult for me to follow through the newspapers. So I
I
don't know much about their plight here,
okay.
whether they looked on as equally or they somebody putting a knee on their neck, on their
I
neck,
know,
like
I know,
things like that, you know.
but the thing is, for example, as Chimamanda, the writer, she's feminist, and for example, with these books about being able to talk about, we have to talk about feminism, we have to talk about protecting the human rights. It's like it is the moment of not being just talking about color, it's talking about everybody has an issue. We we have to break free of the system that we have been put on, no. And as you were saying, yes, go ahead.
Yes, true. That's true. That's why, as writers, you know, sometimes we try to tackle difficult themes along those lines. You know, like because writing is also a tool that we can use to try to challenge. You know, challenge and
The status quo.
yeah. And you can also do it while you're hiding in your room. You know, you don't have to, if you're writing about something difficult, you do it in the protection of your room, not in Socalo, exposed to the police, to the riot police.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, for example, that don't you think, as you were saying, that at some point your book is being read in taught in universities, and that maybe the for now the revolution may come from educating people and the basic part of valuing others' life and traditions also, and but coming together in talking about it, and how books will eventually, now we don't have borders, we can download your book and have this experience with other people, and but now is the time to do that more than ever, now that we're isolated physically, but we have to open our minds and hearts to find other people that are challenging the system, that are talking about it, and eventually, as I said, probably teaching the children, maybe the children that are seeing the news and saying, what are they fighting about? For example, I don't know if last week you read about in Sesame Street, in this American TV program for children. For the first time, they were talking about racism, and Sesame Street
Ah,
has 50 years being on the TV, and they're finally talking because many kids are really restless about it, and the way we talk about what's happening right now will be recorded also in their minds, and in a time frame that other people will say, well, probably we were really crazy not to talk about this before, because it's something, as you said, something really difficult. Many peoples have been killed in Africa. It's the same story, and in Mexico and in many other places. As last week, King Leopold, the Belgian king, the people want to remove in Belgium the statues and the names of him, because he killed over 15 million Africans, and
right,
we
yeah.
and we don't know about the story. I mean, he killed more people than Hitler, and we don't know about that as easily as the Nazis, because that's the story that always, oh, tons of movies and tons of books are made about the Nazis and the Jews and so on, but we don't talk about enough about that countries and continents like Africa that have this
Yes,
problem.
yes, but and then unfortunately for writers and publishers and books in general, people are not buying books to read. Reading seems to be going down, down. Somebody would rather buy an expensive cell phone and go
Netflix.
on Twitter or go on Facebook, and spend the whole day, just browsing through Facebook and reading small like snippets of stories of other people's lives, but not a complete story that can elevate your mind, like
Yeah.
or educate you and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have, there's another kind of war happening. No, what the media tells you to do and gets you hooked on social media, exactly, just to make you, the information is out there now, but they don't want you, and the governments don't want us to be informed and read books like yours and have compassion for others and develop that connection with other human beings. No, it's easily for them to, exactly, read little things and fake news and so on. So that's why for us as a magazine, and being the magazine of a bookstore chain in Mexico, it's really important for us to keep on talking with authors like you and to promote the yeah,
Reading
reading.
culture.
Hmm.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
what
Yeah.
kind of, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Mhm.
Yes. No, I know. I was just saying thank you for
Ah,
promoting literature and Lee magazine.
yeah, it's lemas in Spanish.
Lema. So read more.
Read more. Exactly, lemas.
Read more. Okay.
And what are you reading right now to share with our readers? What are you reading?
Right now, I'm reading this. I'm trying to read this book. I've been reading
Can
it
you put
for.
it a little bit higher? Ah, great book. I think it's one of
Can
the
you read?
most
Can you
top,
read the title?
yeah, 100 Years of Solitude.
All right. This is a very beautiful book.
It
I
is.
have been reading it and trying to write my own book and also trying to study. So I'm reading very, very slowly. Sometimes I forget where I am, then I have to go back.
Do
But
you
now I'm on a semester break, so I will try to finish it.
does that edition have there are some editions that have the family tree, so you don't lose sight of who's.
Yeah, the family trees are so, they are so, there are so many. Sometimes you can lose track. Yeah. This book I was given by a friend here in Mexico
Hmm,
City,
that's a good
and
friend.
so I owe it to her to finish it.
Yeah, yeah,
To
please
finish
do.
it.
But look, probably on Google there are some family trees that already, I mean, they're already made, so you can visualize it faster. And yeah, but I think it's a it takes time. It's not like a fast read. So because it has its special rhythm.
Yeah. And then you also have to digest. Sometimes when you are reading a book, there's some kind of books where you can read maybe just a chapter and then just put it down and just enjoy the feeling, that it evokes in you, you just
Mhm.
not finish it quickly.
Exactly.
Just
No,
read it slowly because it's too nice. It's too nice.
exactly.
Yeah.
And other African authors that you can recommend us also?
Um, there are so many. Um,
Top
I
two.
think let's do that. I can send maybe an email or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
There are
because this interview.
so many writers from
No,
Africa.
I know you have many, many.
Hmm.
But we
I
can,
can,
yeah, you can like give us like a top five, so we can. We're gonna publish this interview next month, and you can send that in, so I can just put it like.
right. Yes, I think that it would be best if maybe if it's a list and then say why I like this one, why I like that one, and also I'm a little bit behind on my reading, you know. And you
Yeah.
have here in Mexico City, uh, Tsitsi Tsitsi Tangarembwa was translated
Mm.
here. Her book is called Deva's Condition. I forget the title in Spanish. If I find it, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Great.
You know, it's a good book. It's almost one of the best from Zimbabwe. I wanted to say Africa, but
Yeah.
there are other writers in Africa
No, I know it's a long tradition.
equally good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And what are you writing about right now?
yeah. I actually thought about that you are going to ask me that question and whether I should tell you or not.
Ah,
Right. But,
well, just like a little
but
bit.
it's a state secret.
Exactly.
But I can
Exactly.
tell you, I can tell you just briefly.
Okay.
I've been writing this book since 2015. I started writing it when I was living in Germany, in Hanover.
Okay.
It just came on me. I am writing a book set in ancient Africa before colonialism.
Ah,
Right.
beautiful.
So I'm trying to explore that life, in ancient Africa before pollution. I would say that pollution by other cultures before we became polluted. And I've managed to create a kingdom
Mm.
fantasy from my own mind and also populated it with people, with characters. And I have a storyline which is very interesting for me. And I know eventually when it gets finished, people will like to read about it. I am working so hard on it even right now. Yeah,
Wow.
but it's
You have a reader here.
Africa before colonization. I don't know if you can visualize that, when there was nothing from the West.
Exactly.
Warriors,
Mhm.
wars,
Yeah,
kings, queens.
exactly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no, and yeah, for us, I mean, for us is the same in that we can understand you. How
Yeah. Mm.
and I'm sorry, you were gonna say something.
Right. And also the reason why I am writing this book is that I also realized that most books that from Africa that we come across, they are set in the modern age,
Hmm.
and there is an interest about Africa. There's, a, there's an interest about ancient Africa within Africa and outside Africa, not this modern Africa that you see with aeroplanes, electricity, computers. No. When
Exactly.
there were no computers, how did people live? How
Yeah.
do they relate to each other? The economy, cultures, all those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we know a little bit about that, it has been told by the countries that make the colonies, not the invaders. No, you have these books in London or France or whatever that say the way they saw us. Like for us, the Spanish were the ones who told uh, about how was our lifetime before we were conquered. No, so it probably
Right.
really important for us to do the other way around, to gain that empowerment, if you will, by retelling the story from the point of view of not the colonists.
Right. Mexico before the Spanish.
Exactly. I mean, and we do have a lot of information.
A story like that, but a story like that, like the one that I'm writing now, it involves a lot of research. That's why I think maybe I am a little bit slow in finishing it, because sometimes I have to spend months researching on a particular topic. Like, for example, I'm also trying to investigate, ancient African technology, right? And my main character, they now I'm telling more. They they are blacksmiths, iron workers, and that is a technology that was discovered in Africa when it was being discovered everywhere else in the world, And people might wonder how was it discovered, things like that. And I'm trying to write a story around that, and other forms of mystical technology, if you can call them that.
And medicine,
that, and other forms of mystical technology, if you can call them that.
And I'm sorry, and medicine, and how the cosmovision they had, no? I mean, obviously it's really enriched, and it's really, I mean, for a country and a whole continent in constant communication, and how life happened before, as you said, the kings and everything. It must be really interesting and something for us to reconnect with.
Right. Like for example, in our folk tales from ancient Africa, we have flying baskets, So people already had that concept that something can fly, in the sky, take you from point A to point B. However, most flying baskets are associated with witchcraft, like sorcerer flying from point A to point B. But although maybe it did not evolve further into the aeroplane, but the concept of something flying through the air was there, right? So those are the things that I'm trying to touch about little by little, just to make an interesting and engrossing story.
And in now that you said about magic, the many cultures, many magic and black sorcery and all of that we know in Mexico, we're totally intertwined with the visions of many religions in Africa. So that's really set in Veracruz and many other things in Mexico. So even the music, I don't know if the marimba, there's this instrument that comes from Africa, and we have it
from Zimbabwe.
So I have to say Zimbabwe, not only Africa, it's Zimbabwe.
Yeah, it's from Zimbabwe. It's from Zimbabwe, from the Shona culture. It's an interesting musical instrument.
I love it. I mean, it's really sweet. I really like it. So
right. You also have a book in at Gandhi, which was written by Maina Mutonya from Kenya. Do you know about the book?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll send you an email. Maybe you might be interested to talk to him at another date. It's in Spanish. It's there. And it's La Política de la Vida Cotidiana en la Música Gikuyu en Kenya.
Thank you. I will love to read it. And you say it perfectly.
That's my recommendation. And he lives here in Mexico.
I will talk to him.
Mexico City, yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think it's important to talk, as you said, to talk about that. Not to stop talking about what happened, but to talk about the food, and I mean what makes a country no, the people that make the country, not only the ravaging and all of that they've done. After.
Yeah, and in the new book that I'm writing, that is one of the things that make me write it slowly, because I also have to research on early ancient African food. What were they eating? You know, we always know that our people were eating meat, but what else?
Exactly.
Did they grow plants? Things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the normal, a proper Zimbabwean platter, dinner, no, or treat?
You'll be interested to know this. Our staple diet is maize from Mexico.
Yeah,
Maize,
I
we
know
make
that.
it into a thick porridge, not like the thought, you know, but thick
Tortilla.
porridge like this, and then we have it on the side and a dish of vegetables, maybe stew on the side. That's the staple diet in most Southern African countries. And they don't know, most of them, they don't know that maize came from here, from Mexico.
Yeah, yeah.
They think that it is original to Africa. I also don't know how it got into Zimbabwe or other African countries from here.
I think because of this communication that started happening from when they have some ships arrived in Veracruz, or through Spain, and then they came to Veracruz, and there was some communication there. I also thought that because I went to a party in an embassy, but I don't know which country, which African country was it, and I tasted, they were like our version of tamal, and it was, they were really similar, and then they told me that exactly it's the corn, the maize from Mexico. And so
Right.
I think there probably your next book will be what connects Zimbabwe to Mexico.
Mexico. Yeah, actually, we can also say that Mexico colonized Southern Africa through maize. Maize from Mexico colonized Southern Africa, because that is what everybody eats now.
Exactly.
Every day, 2 times a day.
Exactly.
2
It's
times.
really important.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And you have some comments from in our chat we have in YouTube from Stephanie Esparza.
Unfortunately, I only had this screen here.
I'll read it. I'll read it to you. Hello,
Okay.
Christopher.
Let me go. Let me go to YouTube.
So you
Now
can.
I don't have the link.
I'll tell you.
Magazine.
Let me give you the link so you can properly say hi to them.
All right. I am opening YouTube.
I just put you the link in our chat in Zoom. So you
All right,
can.
let me check. Let me quickly check.
Mm-hmm.
Zoom. How do you go to the Zoom chat?
Where you can see me and then put over your mouse on the.
Oh yeah, I'm on the page. I'm on the page. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and on the right side it says Stephanie Esparza. If you don't see it, I can read it to you.
But how do you reply to that? Okay.
I mean, they're watching you live, so you can say, hi, Stephanie.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I'd forgotten about that. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. I was Manyanga and your family. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. And if you don't see it, and Mutonya, there is the guy who. They're watching you live, so you can say, hi, Stephanie.
You can.
Right. Hi, Alejandro. Hi, Stephanie. I was Manyanga and your family. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.
If you can mute the video.
Now I'm watching myself speaking.
Exactly. Now it's. Okay. So, and Stephanie, thank you for saying that the book also she recommends. It's Condiciones Nerviosas de Tsitsi Dangaremga. That's what you said, no? published by the
Yes.
University Veracruzana, because in Veracruz there's, I mean, important um, uh, view of obviously of the people who arrived there.
Yeah, Titi Tangarembo was published by Universidad Veracruzana,
Veracruzana. Ajá. Yeah.
Condiciones Nerviosas.
Yes.
It was translated by Dr. Nai Maria Anaya Ferreira at UNAM. She's at UNAM, yeah.
And exactly. And well, Javier Sacristan says that he's really eager to read your book. So as we're almost about to close, we're almost closing this interview. But I mean, if you want to say anything else, and obviously,
I don't think I have anything else to say except that I'll be very happy if people bought the book.
yeah, of course, because as I was telling you, for us, it's not.
I'll be very happy to see if I'm on the subway, on the metro, to see someone sitting and reading Huyendo con mi madre.
I'm sure. Oh, one last question: how was your relationship with Harper Books, that your publishing house in Mexico? How did you get the information that they were going to publish?
Oh, this is my first time to be published by them, and I'm very happy that they did that, because they are a very big publisher, just like Gandhi is also a very big bookstore, and I'm happy to be interviewed by you. And I would like to thank also Edgar Krause, the editor. You know him? The editor.
Yes.
That,
I love Edgar. He's a really, really good editor.
Yeah. He did a lot of hard work to get the book out, and it took quite some bit of time, but it was worth the wait. And now, we'll see what happens.
Well, I hope for, as you said, that people, you can find people reading your book on the subway and in other places. And we're really happy to have been able to talk to you as we started this interview, telling about how for us it's not common to be close to African literature and Zimbabwean literature, and with a great author like you, and to tell you that I mean, we're really happy to start getting close to your work, and to see more of your work published in the near future.
Yes, this is not the end.
Exactly. No. this is just getting started.
Yeah, we're just getting started. And hopefully one day maybe we'll come to I don't know whether at Gandhi bookstore you do readings there, like live.
Yeah.
After the pandemic.
Exactly. After this Orwellian story that we're living, no?
Yes.
Yeah, we're sure we can talk with Edgar to do that. It will be really, really nice to get, when the stores are getting opened again, to have a reading with you, and with Edgar having a talk with you, with your readers and future readers.
All right. And do you have any final question?
No. Thank you so much. Well, it was, I mean, really great to talk to you, Christopher, and we'll see each other really soon.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias a ti.
Okay, bye.
Bye.